granted them by Prime Minister Joseph Fotu today, Professor Edwin Freeman, the Chief Executive Officer of Hofin International Consortium, unveiled their intention. They will be investing in the agricultural, real estate development and air transport sectors. Christian Chatham reports from the Star Building.
The delegation of U.S. business tycoons is in search of new grounds for the multiple U.S. companies it represents to expand their activities. The audience which Prime Minister Joseph Fotu granted the delegation was therefore an initial contact with the government of Cameroon.
The goal of this visit is to meet with the Prime Minister, other ministries within Cameroon, and companies and individuals to discuss how the U.S. companies and Cameroon can work together to help increase exports to Cameroon, to help internal development within Cameroon.
The delegation represents the interest of U.S. businesses spread across 94 countries on 6 continents, covering fields as diverse as agriculture, air transport, seaport exploitation, real estate development and hotel development, amongst others.
From what we've seen, Cameroon is a very beautiful nation that has tremendous potential that is being developed right now. And by working with the U.S. partners, we believe that can be accelerated and greater heights can be obtained.
Prime Minister Joseph Fotu has reassured the U.S. business representatives that Cameroon is a business-friendly environment open to foreign investors.
The third ordinary session of Parliament for the 2020 legislative year opens tomorrow, but the speakers of the National Assembly and the Senate expected to present keynote addresses on the state of the nation ahead of the session, which will be largely dedicated to the 2021 state budget. The Conference Centre of Yaoundé, which will host the 30 days of legislation, is receiving a first lift. Emmanuel Avemieux reports on the level of preparedness.
A quick glance at the exterior of the National Assembly gives the feel of an ordinary day, but not as a walk is taken into the lobby. The red carpet being rolled and vacuumed announces the solemnity of the event that will be hosted. The third ordinary session of the 2020 legislative year at the Senate is just a heartbeat away, and technicians are ensuring that the House chamber, which will accommodate the 100 senators, is set. The sound system is brought to perfection and the translation kits lie in wait for use, while seats to serve the public are transported. At the entrance to the relocated House chamber of the National Assembly, the COVID-19 screen box is a must for all, as the virus must be kept at bay. While security officers work on the latch, the lobby is cleared of unwanted items and the committee rooms already with occupants are disinfected and sitting arrangements respecting physical distancing. This as the House chamber with the elected representatives already meeting look forward to tomorrow's opening.
Although the third ordinary session will have the elected representatives examine the budgetary outline of the state and scrutinize growth policies, other issues will likely be discussed. They include the consolidation of peace, the resolution of the crisis in the northwest and southwest regions, as well as government's riposte strategy against the coronavirus. Charles Anyangwe spoke to some senators and members of the National Assembly in this report.
The expectations of members of the upper and lower houses of parliament are very high as they begin meeting at the Yaoundé Conference Centre this Thursday for the last ordinary session of parliament for 2020, dedicated to the voting of the Finance Bill of Cameroon for 2021.
We are hoping that this budget will be realistic, it will meet up with the expectations of the people, and that it will be a fast track for the decentralization process.
This session is very, very important, and for the future, for the putting in place the real decentralization as the President hoped.
Top among the issues that members of parliament expect to see in the budget are allocations for some of the burning issues brought forward from the year 2020.
Like the fight against Corona, the fight against insecurity, and the crisis in the northwest and southwest. So we are expecting that the 2021 budget is going to tackle these problems, and we're going to come out with ample solutions, given that decentralization has to be speedily implemented.
The lawmakers will be expected to scrupulously examine all the dossiers that will be tabled before them and put questions to members of government on some key issues concerning their ministerial
In one of our top stories, a case concerning two lawyers at the Court of First Instance in Douala, Bonanjo, which took place yesterday, has left onlookers perplexed after a scandalous outcome. The confrontation has been blamed on attempts to corrupt a judge on an impending petition. Alphonse Abongwa Aju sought to know more from the officials of the Judicial Police and now reports.
A court session sanctioned by tension and tear gas. Lawyers in Douala turned up to the Bonanjo Court of First Instance in solidarity with two of their colleagues drawn to court because of professional error. In fact, they wanted the judge to free them or at least pass judgment for their case immediately. The two lawyers in question, Wangtung Geko Augustin and Nesuk Junko Annie Christelle, reportedly collected the sum of 3 million CFA francs from their client, a certain Nubom. The money had to play the trick in the final judgment of their case. Only that at the end, last November 2, the judge of the case, Nathalie Adjui, slammed an 18-year prison term to the accused instead of 18 months. On Thursday, November 5, a relative of the accused, a certain Wanang, came to claim the money from the judge only to be referred back to those with whom they had carried out their transaction. The Judicial Police in Douala was then dragged in to investigate the matter. The lawyers then appeared to court for their first hearing Tuesday, November 11, only for the case to be adjourned to November 25.
What a scandal in the judicial sector. Onto one of our top stories. The non-payment of social insurance dues by a couple of enterprises in the country to the detriment of their workers has been strongly decried by officials of the National Social Insurance Fund. So far, only 3,000 local enterprises have insured their employees, a figure considered unacceptable by the Fund's Director General, Noel Alain Olivier Mekolo-Vonda. Luma Slim Davies has the details.
Social security package is important for workers' welfare during retirement. Unfortunately, many enterprises are defiant in making payments on behalf of their employees in this regard to the National Social Insurance Fund.
It is a recurrent problem, but it is a fault of CNPS. The law gives the right to CNPS to go after enterprises that do not pay these funds into the coffers of CNPS. CNPS can block the account of these default enterprises. Some of these enterprises are their friends, they do nothing.
The situation today is deplorable, with just 1/4 of enterprises paying these retirement dues. Out of 30,000 enterprises, only 7,000 are in order with the payments. 15% of enterprises with 6 to 20 salaried workers are defiant, while 81% of enterprises with at least 6 salaried workers also stand accused. A strict adjustment or regulatory mechanism is needed to put things in order.
It is thus imperative that awareness to the importance of recovering social security dues is intensified throughout the national territory for both employers and employees. Economists explain that a number of mechanisms must be put in place to guarantee effectiveness, amongst them the payments of subventions. Clarice Aritakan tells us more.
Recovering social security dues is crucial, officials of the National Social Insurance Fund insist. The fact that many workers are cheated out of their social benefits is worrisome, reason why economists propose investing in growth drivers as one of the solutions. Building more companies they hold will enable the state better guarantee that enterprises honor their obligations to workers. Policies which incite the payment of taxes have equally been suggested. Fiscal exemptions or exonerations could be a profitable stimulant for the recovery of social contributions and arrears. Other views hold that subventions should be granted to businesses in strategic domains of activity, including those of the private sector. Meanwhile, officials charged with collecting social dues explain that there is equally the possibility of granting moratorium to enterprises to enable them clear their debts. Furthermore, trade unionists have been tasked with putting up a common front in order to better defend the rights of workers, capacity building and good governance put forward in order to avoid a situation where some practices put managers in a spot which exposes them to the cold hands of the law.
The 7:30 news tonight delves into the bird flu, whose outbreak has been announced in Europe. Cameroonians remember the devastating effects of the spread in 2017, where hundreds of birds on poultry farms were destroyed. The Minister of Livestock, Fisheries and Animal Industries, Dr. Tiger, has announced the reinforcement of preventive measures in the country. Ewane Epole investigates.
The World Health Organization, WHO, has published a report on the outbreak of the bird flu in some European countries. It is in this regard that the Cameroon Minister of Livestock, Fisheries and Animal Industries, Dr. Tiger, published a service note on preventive measures put in place. Francois Jongno, president of the poultry sector in Cameroon, also spoke to Cameroon Tribune on the situation. Measures being taken include the ban of poultry imports from neighboring countries and France, where Cameroon imports most of its agricultural products, and the reinforcement of customs surveillance on Cameroon borders.
We have received messages in our WhatsApp group and we are at alert. We hope government has taken measures to avoid the bird flu to reach Cameroon.
It's worth noting that in 2017, Cameroon witnessed an episodic of bird flu with hundreds of poultry decimated in the West region, Adamawa and the Center region, incurring an estimated loss of over 16 billion CFA francs.
In economic news, senior officials and experts from Central Africa have been seeking practical routes to enhance development and the sub-region's economic activity. This was at the 36th session of the Intergovernmental Committee organized by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. Caroline Okier-Anoma has the details.
Structural and industrial transformation is primordial if Central Africa has to move away from unsustainable growth with minimal impact on job creation and poverty alleviation. Therefore, Central African countries need to swiftly reform their current educational systems by emphasizing on upgrading training in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and innovation. This will improve the quality and workforce to deliver the goods for economic diversification on the marketplace. The virtual conference that is ongoing will avert experts the opportunity to emphasize the need for Central African countries to capitalize on the African Continental Free Trade Area to immediately change the productivity system through tech-based and digital-enhanced manufacturing knowledge production and high-end services, which is tantamount to a vibrant regional value chain for each country.
Away from the economy, clarifications on international labor laws ratified by Cameroon have been given to representatives of employers, employees and trade unions today. The forum was a workshop organized by the Ministry of Labour and Social Security in partnership with the International Labour Organization. Cynthia Saptala reports that the impact of the coronavirus in the labour industry was also discussed.
Apart from popularizing some of the conventions and recommendations agreed upon by Cameroon, the workshop in Yaoundé also provided those concerned with regulating the workplace the scope of their obligations to the ILO, one of which is to submit adopted instruments to competent authorities.
Cameroon has been commended for its effort to submit to its legislative authorities 3 instruments of recent adoption, including Convention and Recommendation on Violence and Harassment in the World of Work. And what has been said and agreed by the tripartite working group of the Standard Review Mechanism. They're talking about instruments that date back all the way to 1919. The world has changed.
With a world characterized by a pandemic, the effects on employers and employees has prompted a review of the instruments.
Over 170 youth and associations in the East region have received funds from the 3-year Special Youth Plan that will boost their activities. At an event in Bombang, the Minister of Youth Affairs and Civic Education, Mununa Fotu, cautioned the beneficiaries to use the financial assistance and the kits to empower themselves and to reduce poverty in their communities. Tala LT tells us more from the East.
Beneficiaries of the 3-year Special Youth Plan, promising to be diligent in the management of the checks and startup kits handed to them. Drawn from 13 pioneer villages and clusters, the youth who have been armed with the necessary skills and tools to create employment for themselves and others say they are ready to fully execute their project.
Before, we just use our proper means, and now today we have supplementation of government.
While handing over these checks and equipment to the beneficiaries in Abongbang, Minister Mununa Futsu said,
I ask to those who have received their support to be more engaged and determined in the implementation of their project.
In the presence of dignitaries like Governor Gregoire Vongo and Minister Joseph Lay, moral, civic and entrepreneurial rearmament kits like motorbikes, generators and sound gadgets were handed to workers of the decentralized services of the ministry to enable them better follow up.
In education, the 2020-2021 academic year at the Yaoundé Institute of the Catholic University of Central Africa has begun. Today's solemn reopening, whose inaugural lesson centered on the teaching of law and political science within African universities, was presided at by the Metropolitan Archbishop of Yaoundé and Chancellor of the Institute, His Grace Jean Barga. Yoti Khalid Songa paints a vivid picture of the ceremony.
Prayerfully, they confide the 2020-2021 academic year to God Almighty. The Yaoundé Institute of the Catholic University of Central Africa reopens in style. On the Ekunoayene campus resides a new faculty, that of law and political science.
We want to build a new kind of jurist, a personality of law and politician. In the new kind of devolution of power, we need a kind of special person to take care of those institutions which are created.
More important is the holistic development of the students.
This university wants to improve all the integrity of the man, all the integrality of the people, so that we can join the science and the conscience.
With a student population of over 5,000, the Catholic Institute of Yaoundé is poised to train people who will be at the service of truth and justice.
The wearing of face masks in public places will be mandatory until further notice.
The regular washing of hands is one of the several measures outlined by the World Health Organization to limit the spread of the coronavirus. The gesture health officials emphasize must be accompanied by the use of soap to avoid any possibilities of the virus to survive. Baldwin Sama and his guest, Dr. Joseph Fotu, talk on how the neglected hygiene rule can cause havoc in society. Hello, Baldwin.
Good evening to you, Esther Kmer. It remains one of those outlined measures to limit the spread of the coronavirus the world over, the regular washing of hands. And tonight we discuss with our guest, Dr. Joseph Fotu, how important is the washing of hands as far as fighting against the coronavirus is concerned. Good evening to you, Dr. Joseph.
Good evening, Baldwin.
Tell us how important is the regular washing of hands in this ongoing fight against the coronavirus is concerned.
Absolutely. As simple as the act of washing hands may be, hand washing remains the very best option to prevent the spread of coronavirus. It is the best, the most easy, and the most natural. But however, hand washing is not just the act of using water. You must make sure you use a generous amount of soap on your hand, because soap is going to help dissolve this envelope virus, and making sure your hands at the end of it is quite pure in terms of transmitting the virus. And also, if you don't have water and soap available, maybe you are in your office, you are within the community, you can use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer as a second option. But we should always remember washing your hands with soap for about 10 seconds only is preferable, even as compared to a normal hand sanitizer. So the act of washing hands is what we should also inculcate in every single Cameroonian, such that the spread of coronavirus through this simple act will be highly effective in our context.
Thank you so much, Dr. Joseph Fotu, for being a guest this evening. We should continue washing our hands regularly using soap so as to avoid any possibility of getting infected with the coronavirus. Back to you, Esther Kmer.
Thanks, Baldwin. We should use soap, and also it's important to emphasize that the water is preferably to be running water. The search for a vaccine for the coronavirus is intensifying, and some candidates have begun announcing positive results for their late-stage findings. The World Health Organization had hit on a few promising cases by the end of the year, and this Monday, an American company said it will deliver a vaccine soon. How concrete is this claim for a COVID-19 vaccine? Beatrice Losamba provides answers.
The world had been expecting a vaccine for COVID-19 within a year. The vaccine timeline seems to have been respected as the American company Pfizer Monday announced positive results from a late-stage vaccine trial. The vaccine maker claims its candidate is more than 90% effective in preventing the disease. The development makes Pfizer the first company to announce positive results in this global hunt, which began in January. The WHO has described Pfizer's work as promising, though the approval process still needs to be streamlined by health regulators. The special challenge of storing this vaccine at -70 degrees Celsius or below makes it less likely to be delivered in Africa and Asia, where the climate is warm. Hope is still alive, however, in tens of promising vaccine candidates working against the clock as the world waits anxiously for any positive news about a pandemic that has killed more than 1.2 million people in the globe and nearly 450 in Cameroon.
President Paul Biya says global action is needed to face challenges like the coronavirus pandemic. This was at the third edition of the Paris Peace Forum, which began today. The president's statement was delivered by the Minister of External Relations, His Excellency Mbela Mbela. It was also occasion for Cameroon to outline measures taken to combat COVID-19. He underscored that the outbreak of the pandemic gives room for a rethink on how to check terrorism, climate change, and economic hardship. And now on to sports. The Indomitable Lions of Cameroon have had their third training session today ahead of tomorrow's match against Mozambique. Apart from all the players who were there, Maxime Choupo-Moting will not be part of the game tomorrow, as we hear this report by Jules Ndemba.
22 players took part in the third training session of the Indomitable Lions of Cameroon at the newly renovated Reunification Stadium in Douala. Karl Toko Ekambi, Harold Mukudi, Hervé Ngomo, and Felix Oukine of Coton Sport of Garoua are the latest to join the team. Tomorrow's game will take place without Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting, injured. The team captain has been replaced by Jérôme Ongene. Never without his musical set, Oyongo Bitolo and teammates are determined to grasp the 3 points of the encounter against Mozambique. Despite the tight security and the COVID-19 preventive measures, the fans of the Lions are never too far.
1-0, 2-0, 3-0, les Lions vont gagner. Allez, les Lions de notre âme, gagnons piqueté là.
Cameroon tops the group with 4 points, equal number with the Mozambicans. The match will be played on Thursday.
The third ordinary session of the 2020 legislative year at the National and at the Senate begins tomorrow. The elected representatives ready to address national issues will meet at a refurbished conference center in Yaoundé. Tonight on the 7:30 News, you had details of the preparations as well as the stakes and the expectations of the elected representatives. More news comes up at 8:30 p.m. with Adel Mbala. Our programs continue on the CRTV. Thanks for being with us. It was our pleasure serving you. Tomorrow is another day. I'll be back at 7:30 p.m. God willing. Good night.
In this connection, we should avoid stigmatizing.
Best practices for downloading and installing applications on mobile devices. The most intriguing step after buying mobile devices is the downloading and installation of applications to improve on their functioning. The best way of downloading applications on a mobile device is by using best practices for downloading and installing applications on mobile devices. The most intriguing step after buying mobile devices is the downloading and installation of applications to improve on their functioning. The best way of downloading applications on a mobile device is by using applications pre-installed by default in your device for this purpose. For Android, it is Play Store. For Windows, Windows Store. For Apple, iTunes Store or Apple Store. For BlackBerry, App World. For Android systems, the following is the procedure to download and install applications. Make sure the device is connected to the internet and is signed in with a Google account. Tap on the Play Store icon on the screen. In the dialog box that opens, enter the name of the desired application in the Search for Apps and Games slot and tap the search icon. Select the desired application by tapping on its icon from the list that pops up. Then tap Install. With this done, the desired application will be downloaded and installed. That was a minute on ICTs, presented by the National Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, ANTIC.